Good morning, everyone. So we are very excited to share with you our conversation hub. This is what we believe there is a tremendous opportunity, of course, an associated challenge with the joys of customer messaging that all of us here are interested in. So what we call this, the situation that the messaging and customer messaging is in with most businesses, we call it the too much of a good thing problem. And what that means is customers love messaging. You and I, as consumers, we love the fact that it's very easy. You can start the conversation anytime. You don't have to wait for the business to be available to you to be able to respond in real time. And you don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to identify yourself. You don't have to log in, zero UI. Also, you have a full context and history of your conversation with the business. And that's a big part of getting good service and feeling assured about the service you're getting. Because as a consumer, you never have to start from scratch. You know what you talked about, and you can point out to the business that you talked about certain things and they said certain things. And so that part of demand coming from consumers is exceptionally strong for messaging. Okay. Now, companies also, as it turns out, love messaging for two reasons. The first, it's obvious. No, it's not cost to serve. It's the fact that their consumers, their customers want it. So that's the first driver. Right? Customers really want customer messaging. And the second and convenient driver is that it also reduces your cost of service. And the reason for it is that messaging, because it's not a real-time channel, you don't expect a response right away, though you want to make sure that you maintain a certain rhythm with your customers when you're responding. If a customer is responding every 5 seconds, you don't want to be waiting 3 hours before you get back to them. But if a customer is getting back to you in 15, 20, 30 minutes with the next part of the conversation, you can take a few more minutes than having to respond instantly. So it's easier to smooth out your agent utilizations, the peaks and valleys of load, by adding this work item or work group of messaging into, say, phone calls or real-time chats. So that's one advantage. The second advantage and the cost of service reduction is coming from the fact that with the digital workforce that increasingly we have, these team members, associates of yours, are very good at multiplexing. They can handle, in many cases, 10 parallel customer conversations at the same time. So messaging-based conversations can be more efficient that way. And the last bit, which is starting to become more relevant, is it does enable greater automation because it's all digital. And so you can automate responses. And then there's another parallel insight here, which we see, and we are seeing the market also responding to this, and that is for businesses that have large voice-based contact center operations. This notion of messaging-based conversations is very convenient, also because it helps them to channel shift from voice to messaging to the digital side in a regulated, easy way. Because a vast majority of callers into phone contact centers now are calling from smartphones or SMS-enabled phones, which means that if you have the ability to do what we call smart IVR, which is one of the conversation hub connectors, then the business can, based on workload in their phone operation, decide to turn on specific pathways of IVR, turn on the option to say, hey, I can detect that you are calling from an SMS phone or a smartphone. And if you want, we can instantly have you chatting through messaging with someone to get help. And that migration can be regulated. It can be increased. It can be decreased. And it gives a very convenient, easy experience to the customer. So that combination of facts, that customers love messaging and businesses also love messaging is leading to the explosion of what I call messaging adoption. So the challenges are the challenges of rapid success. Businesses are recognizing that their customers, when they are talking to them through messaging, are not getting the best experience. They're getting inconsistent experiences depending on the channel. They're getting sometimes incorrect responses because some of the channels are not quite enabled with the right tools and response capabilities. And agent populations may have different capability too. And then often what they're finding is when they try to automate, the responses are coming across fairly non-smart. Let's just say that, right? So surveys and trends of customer feedback are showing that messaging is being adopted by customers and businesses, but the experience that customers are getting is not up to speed. Businesses are struggling to keep up with the growth of messaging contact volume because they are trying to solve the problem in a very tactical way to begin with. Just adding one channel, one silo, another point channel, another silo, another function and department in the company decides that they want to offer messaging in another line of business, yet another silo. And so lots of silos. And the automation is patchy, it's fairly rudimentary, and there's very poor analytics support across all the channels. So some channels may have decent analytics, some have none. There's no way to aggregate all that. And mind you, there's a ton of back office sort of developmental work that businesses are struggling with now because their teams are trying to connect channels with automation, with contact center teams, with agent desktops, with backend systems, with knowledge systems. So you can see that this hub is both a challenge and a big opportunity. And underlying that is this huge opportunity of knowledge as a core that drives automation and assistance across all these messaging touchpoints for all customer conversations. Gartner's assessment is that knowledge is the #1 technology for enhancing overall customer service across the 3 dimensions of operational performance, customer experience, and agent and employee experience. So the core of knowledge needs to be brought in alongside messaging. And to us, that is the missing bit in the messaging world right now. Very point solution oriented, focused on the bottom layer of this value building pyramid, connections, plumbing. Very important, you need to have it, but that's not the end of the game. What you want to do is make sure that the connect capabilities are interlocked with the solve capabilities and enabled by optimization across the board to measure and manage. That's what our Conversation Hub delivers.
Before we get into the hub, though, a quick few words about us. We have been around the block, which is good in this case. We feel that we have a lot of context and understanding of the levels and layers of technology and experience improvements that have come about in the digital world, starting with, for those of us who remember, email, all the way getting into chat, now getting into messaging, and moving on and on. What you see is the core capabilities need to integrate. They need to integrate all the different touch points and not leave behind any, so you don't create additional silos and islands. And so our customer engagement automation proposition, which is what we do, has the digital engagement and conversation hubbing, has the knowledge hubbing, has the analytics hubbing. Bring those 3 together and you get a solution that helps you connect, solve, and optimize easily. We do have some good customers. We're very proud of them. So we talk about them quite a bit, though today we're not going to spend time on that because we want to talk about how to hub and then show you the experience. So the hub advantage, again, before we jump into the how to hub, point products is where we see a big challenge with messaging and connections, lots of different silos. Or we also see a lot of effort put in by businesses, maybe yours too, where you're taking microservices and toolkits from vendors who are providing very smart but limited capabilities around AI, around machine learning. And now your technology teams and your IT teams are putting all that together. That takes a lot of development work. And keeping up with it as more and more channels pop up and more automation opportunities pop up becomes overwhelming. So it's like a whack-a-mole, right? You're always finding the next problem. You're struggling with just keeping up. And the hub that we are providing, the Conversation Hub, is going to be something that brings all that essential capability around connecting, around solving and optimizing in one place, and backs it up with a desktop for the agent. Never forget that agent experience, because at the end of the day, beyond automation lies human assistance. And so for that agent to have the right environment where they can do their job both productively as well as effectively. And for your technology team to feel like continuous innovation is fun, that it's not a chore, it's not a drag. That's what we believe is possible. And so with our BYOX, so bring your own agent, bot, channel, or desktop, the ABCD, so we're calling it BYOX. The architecture is a very simple one. It's all in place, it's modular, it works today. And as Arvind gets into the details, he'll talk about examples and use cases of how you can plug in different desktops, different channels, different bots, and different agents. So a couple of comments on this before I hand it over to Arvind. First thing to keep in mind here is that out of the box, eGain is offering a broad range of existing channels that you can connect to. So you don't have to build those channel connections yourselves. And you can see that list right there. That's a long list. Now, that doesn't mean it's comprehensive. It may be that you need it for a specific channel that goes beyond this, and therefore the APIs show up and we can do that connection. You'll see the use cases where different kinds of bots can be plugged into the Conversation Hub, and they can all collaborate to deliver the experience that you are looking to create. You'll also see how we can easily connect both at a contact center level, which is the send to agent part, as well as sending and connecting into the CRM desktop. And those are two different things. One, we allow and we have the ability in our system to do the routing and queuing, so you don't need to create your own, but if you have your own, you can plug into it. We have a desktop, which is very nice. We will tell you more about it, show you that. But if you have your own desktop, we can connect into that. So there's just a whole bunch of plug and play flexibility, which is what we find very exciting and our customers seem to be enjoying using in our early trials. So with that, let me hand it over to Arvind to talk about how we hub.
Thank you, Ashu. Just get set up, okay? So you heard Ashu talk about the Conversation Hub and its flexible architecture. So I'm going to take a few minutes to try and walk through how that helps organizations such as yourself design better conversations. And now when it comes to designing conversations, there's no one particular approach that an organization can take. The approach really depends on what are the channels that are important for you, what is the technology that you already have in your organization, and what are the processes that you follow. So it's different for every organization. That is the reason why a flexible, composable architecture for the Conversational Hub is important in designing good conversations. Now, what I'm going to do over the next few slides is show you a few options. These are based on what we have seen working with our customers. These are some of the challenges that we have solved. And just to give you an idea of how you can design these conversations. So let's start with what I would say is probably the most common request that we get. when it comes to conversations is you have service on your web chat, you have service on certain messaging channels. Now you also want to provide service on your app. With the Conversation Hub, it's fairly simple. You can bring your app in as a channel. You can connect that to the Conversation Hub. And what you get the minute you connect the app to the Conversation Hub is all of the abilities that you have enabled for all your channels. That includes your bot, that includes the routing, the advisor desktop, and the agent. All of that is now available on the app. And that's what you get with the hub, an experience that is not siloed, an experience that is consistent across any channel. And when you bring in your own custom channel, that same experience carries through. Another common thing that we see with enterprises these days is you've already made investments in a conversational VA. And let's, for this example, take the Google's Dialogflow as the VA that you've made significant investments in. With the Conversation Hub, you can utilize that investment by bringing that bot and plugging that into the Conversation Hub. And the minute you plug that bot into the Conversation Hub, just the same way as you would plug your app in, it's available now for all the channels that are connected to your Conversation Hub. So everybody can take advantage of the investment that you've already made. And what's more interesting is you can use the Google Dialogflow as an exclusive conversation bot, or you can use it in conjunction with our conversation bot. So if you, for more deeper process guidance, you could hand off to eGain, you could hand back off. So all of those options are available to you just by plugging that into the Conversation Hub. And another use case from one of our large multinational customers who has a presence in Europe and Asia. It's common in Europe and Asia to have agents that will service chats over multiple languages, even if the chats they're servicing is not their primary language. So for them, it was important that you translate the messages coming in to the primary language of the agent, as well as translate the messages going back out to the language that the customer was responding in. Again, it was fairly simple for us to plug in a language translation bot, which would detect the incoming language, translate it, send that over to the agent, and it would, on the way back, translate the languages back out as well. This is one of the things that you will see today in the demo that Jessica will show you towards the end. So again, the minute you plug that in, it's available now for all your channels, regardless of whether your message is coming across from your app or from WhatsApp or from Google's business messages or Apple's business chat. It's available across all channels. Another interesting use case that we ran into recently was where we had a financial services customer who wanted specific requests coming in to the Conversation Hub to go directly to specific people in the organization who were available on Teams. They were not contact center agents, they were SMEs, they were available on Teams. So what we were able to do is use the bring your own agent part of the BYOX to send those conversations, those specific ones, straight through to Microsoft Teams, where the SMEs could answer directly from Teams, and we would send that back up. Again, the rest of the elements that are part of the conversation are still there. You could still front it with a VA. You could still do translation if you wanted to, and you could send that over to Teams for a response going out. Now, you might be aware that we have an integration with Cisco CC, but with any telephony system, if you want to use the telephony system brings its own routing engine, and if you want to use a unified routing experience, you have the ability to send conversations coming into the hub to the telephony system, get that system to route, and then send that over to that system's desktop for a response. So this example shows the Cisco CC. It would work for any telephony system as well. And In cases where you do not want to use unified routing, or you have a routing engine that's set up, we can handle the routing for all of the digital channels coming in, and we could still give your agent a unified experience by plugging in the agent's desktop into the Conversation Hub. Now, this example shows via CCED desktop, but this would hold true for any Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, or any CRM desktop in the company, right? So the agents could be logged into one system and be servicing their requests, and you could still take advantage of all the other pieces that are connected to the Conversation Hub. Now, what I've done is thrown a whole bunch of different use cases at you, and what I really wanted to do was give you guys a view into what's possible with a flexible hub, right? And the key really is you do need a Conversation Hub. You need an architecture that is composable, flexible. You need something that will help you do these things quickly and easily. And quick is really the key word. You want these things you want to be able to take these things to market quickly. You want to be able to see results quickly, and you don't want to engage in long projects to try and get these integrations played. And that's really what the Conversation Hub helps you do. And quite literally, the possibilities with this kind of a hub are endless, and we're just starting to see the front end of it. I want to switch gears a little bit. Now, we've talked a lot about our customer experience and how they will get a consistent experience no matter what channel they're coming in. We've also talked about the business's experience and how they can connect all these pieces together. We want to talk about the third real big piece in this, right? That's the agent's experience. Now, messaging brings about its own challenges, right? And specifically asynchronous messaging. Things like cadence. Is a customer going to respond immediately? Is a customer going to respond in 3 hours? Or is a customer going to respond the next day? Right? Is the customer going to come back on the same channel, or is he going to start off on one channel and switch out to another channel? So all of those challenges are new challenges that messaging brings about. You do need an agent experience that is simplified and easy to make this thing successful. You want to make sure that the agent does not have to deal with any of the complexities that these channels bring, and can focus on the main job, which is to solve the customer's problem. And that's really where the Advisor desktop comes in. As you log into the desktop, you will see that it is actually optimized for every channel. And I do mean optimized for every channel. The way it does that is by adapting the interface to the current task or the current channel that you're trying to service, whether it be your web chat, whether it be Apple's business chat, whether it be Google's business messages or WhatsApp or any of the other channels. It will present you options that are valid for the channel. It will hide all the complexities that the agent does not need to know. It will give the agent visual indicators of what the channel is. So the agent is aware of which channel that they're responding to. But beyond that, the agent's primary job is just to solve the customer's problem, and they do not have to worry about any other piece at all. It also allows you to manage your availability. You can quickly set up your availability for specific channels. You can say you're available for chat, you're available for video chat, etc. When we built the Advisor desktop, messaging was really the core of how we envisioned the desktop would be used, and we built it to handle all of these pieces, all of the complexities that messaging would bring. Some of the things that you do not see in the screenshot, right, are things like when a conversational AI is fronting the messaging channel and transfers the conversation over to the agent. The entire context of that conversation is transferred over. The agent has the ability to scroll up and view the conversation that the customers had with the VA. They are able to scroll further up and see previous conversations that they may have had with the organization. Any contextual information we can get from that conversation that might have happened with the VA, we would use that to bootstrap knowledge and other pieces in the Advisor desktop. We also have the ability, or we also have a feature called Preferred Agent. What it does is it ensures that your conversation that has started with an agent stays with the agent. So whether the customer goes away and comes back 3 hours later or the next day, we can set it up in a way where that conversation goes back to the same agent. And specifically dealing with conversations and messaging, and because of the cadence problem, because of the fact that they may be broken over periods of time, it's important for you to keep context of the entire conversation. So conversation really is every contact that the customers had with the organization over a period of time. So we allow agents to have a conversational view where they can quickly scroll up and see every single contact that they've had with that customer. But at the same time, you also need for your measurement and statistics the ability to differentiate where a problem started and where a problem was solved. So we have the ability to track cases and case closures, which can give you metrics like first call resolution. So, and all of that's done under the covers seamlessly without the agent having to take any action. Right? And the other thing with messaging channels is each of these channels tend to have nuances that are very specific to the channel. They are rich features. Some channels support payments, other channels support rich messages, and multi-select options, etc. The advisor desktop interface adapts to all of those things. So based on what channel you're servicing, when your message goes out, the system will figure out what is the best way to present that message on that channel and will send it out. Again, taking away the need for the agent to know the complexities of that channel. The other piece that's really built into the advisor desktop is the ability to collaborate with other agents in the contact center. And this collaboration can be in the form of conferencing an agent in to help you resolve the problem, or escalating to a supervisor, or bringing a supervisor into the same conversation, or just whispering to somebody else so that you can get an answer quickly and respond back to the customer. And with these features, you have the ability to provide the person you are bringing into this conversation with the entire context of the conversation as well. So we can show the transcript of the person you're bringing in, so they have a view of the conversation. So you don't have to, type all of those pieces in to bring them up to speed. They can just read it and get up to speed. And again, easy notifications like message delivery tell you whether the messages have been sent, etc. Messaging almost automatically means multiprocessing. And this again goes back to the initial cadence problem that I talked about. Because with messaging channels, the cadence will vary based on who the person is on the other end. To make it efficient for a business to handle messaging channels, you almost have to let the agent multiprocess or handle multiple conversations at a time. What that means is we need to now provide the agent with the tools that are necessary so they can handle these multiple conversations at a time. So we provide very visual cues and tools right there in the inbox that allow the agents to be efficient when they have multiple conversations going on. So things like which is the next message that you need to respond to, who has been waiting the longest, what's the sentiment of the customers. As customer sentiment starts going down, you need to focus a little bit more on that conversation, right? And which are the conversations where you have sent a message and you're basically just waiting for the customer to respond. So all of that is available at a quick glance for the agent. The agent can also see the last message as the customer sends it, so they don't really have to switch out to another conversation to keep track of it. They can just, at a glance, know what the customer is talking about. So if the customer is just saying thanks, let me look for more information, you don't want the agent to click on it and spend that extra few seconds trying to understand what the customer said, right? So all of that's available. So make it really efficient for the agent to manage all of these conversations in the advice desktop. I talked a little bit about the different rich features that different messaging channels provide. And this is a couple of screenshots that kind of show you this, right? So this one shows you the screenshot in the middle shows you a list picker. The screenshot on the left is just showing you these pieces on the phone screen. And as you click on each one of those, one of them is a list picker that shows you how that allows you to select from 4 different options, but presented in a really nice way with a graphic, etc. The one on the right side is a date picker that allows you to pick an appointment time or a particular date that you want to do something, right? So these are specific features that are available on certain networks and not available on others. Within the advisor desktop, the agent gets to see the view of these rich features exactly the way you would send that out to the customer, and only those that are valid for the current network that they are processing are shown to the agent. So again, no guesswork required by the agent. And if you attended our last webinar, we talked a lot about how knowledge is important in CX and how knowledge is the big differentiator that allows you to provide better customer experience by helping you find answers. The advisor desktop, knowledge is central to the advisor desktop. Everything centers around knowledge. So as soon as an activity comes in, we extract every bit of information we can from that conversation, and we bootstrap your knowledge, whether that be a process guidance that we can run an agent through, or that be knowledge articles that the agent can use to answer the customer's question. Now, one of the things we also do is, as a conversation is going on, we have an agent VA that continuously monitors that conversation. And when it sees specific areas where it can either help by providing assistance, or it sees potentially an issue with compliance, and I think this might be something that Jessica will be able to show you today as well, it will pop up and it will offer assistance, or it will tell the agent what to do next. If it sees that the agent is responding with messages that are not compliant, it will tell the agent that they need to necessarily escalate it to a supervisor. So again, guiding the agent through the process of solving the problem. And lastly, a word about analytics. Manju did mention that our next webinar on October 5th is all about analytics. So we will be covering analytics in great detail in that webinar. But what I do want to say in relation to the Conversation Hub is that analytics underpins everything that happens in the Conversation Hub. Every action is tracked and every action is measured. So that allows us to bring about interesting KPIs that you can use and analyze to understand how you are doing as an organization, as a contact center, and how you're servicing the customer. So things like trends across channels, which are the channels that you need to focus more. What is the voice of customer that allows you to say how happy or not happy the customer is with your service. Understanding the propensity of the customer to escalate into an assisted channel from a virtual assistant or a conversational bot, etc. Right? So all of those are pieces of information that are available to you from the analytics system, and we'll cover most of these in a lot of detail in our next webinar. So now I've given you a lot of information, but what I really want to do is to show you some of these, and I do want to hand it off to Jessica at this point so she can actually show you most of these pieces.
Good afternoon. Today, I'm going to be showing a demonstration of eGain's Conversation Hub. As I'm sure you've gathered by now, our Conversation Hub allows your business to interact with your customers through their preferred channel. Agents can use eGain's Omnichannel Advisor desktop to answer all incoming inquiries. Let's dive in. Here, I am sharing my phone, where as the customer, I can view this business's Contact Us page. As you can see, we offer a variety of different contact options, including chat, WhatsApp, SMS, video chat, co-browsing. But for this demonstration, I'm going to use Apple Business Chat to send in a message asking about an additional charge on my account. In this scenario, we have our virtual assistant or chatbot fronting the conversation. This same chatbot or virtual assistant can be used to front any or all of your chat and messaging channels. Alternatively, as mentioned earlier in this presentation, we also integrate into third-party solutions. So if you have an existing investment in a chatbot, you can use that to front the conversation and escalate to an agent using the eGain platform. Based off of the customer's first question or utterance, the intent bot determines the intent of my inquiry. As you can see, it asked a follow-up question to confirm my reason for messaging in today, to which I will respond yes. Now that the intent has been determined, the routing bot determines that this is a banking-related question for an existing customer and routes to the proper response bot. The response bot progresses the conversation with the customer. In this case, here it's asking which transaction number I am referencing. So I will fill that out. And now it's going to ask me to confirm my identity. So once I've confirmed these details, the bot can integrate with third-party systems in the backend to deliver a rich contextual conversation. In this scenario, this means pulling up my account information and providing me the details as to what the charge was for. And not only can that virtual assistant provide me with an answer to my original question of explaining that this was from an overdraft fee, but it can take me through the next step of the business process and offer the option to dispute the charge. I will respond with yes. Now we are at the point where the virtual assistant understands that it's time to escalate to a live agent. It will offer this option to the customer and can automatically escalate to an agent. Once again, using the routing bot, the message is appropriately routed to the proper department or queue based off of the topic of the inquiry. This escalation is a seamless experience for the customer because the handoff occurs within the same channel they initiated the conversation from. Before we continue with the flow, I'd like to offer a quick explanation of what you're viewing here. This is eGain's Advisor desktop. Although it can be customized or adjusted to fit the agent's preferences or needs, it's primarily made up of 3 panes. On the left here, we have the inbox pane. This is where all interactions assigned to me are stored. I can see specific details about each interaction, including the customer's name, queue and case information, and timers or prompts alerting me as to which interaction requires my attention. Additionally, we have that sentiment analysis bot, and this analyzes the sentiment for all incoming customer messages and updates the agent based off of that sentiment. I'd also like to specifically call out the icons of these interactions. As you can see, we have a web chat, Facebook Messenger, and Apple Business Chat conversation all occurring at the same time. As the agent, I can respond to all of these messaging platforms simultaneously using the same tools and knowledge to ensure that each channel receives consistent responses from the business. When we go ahead and select one of these interactions, the other 2 panes populate with information. The center is known as the reply pane. It's where I will be interacting with the customer. I can scroll up and see a full virtual assistant transcript, as well as any past conversations this customer has had with our customer service department. Finally is the information pane, and this is where the agent goes to inquire about customer history, as well as seek information from that centralized knowledge base. I can go ahead and click this customer tab here, and I can view details such as their contact information, as well as any internal notes we may have. Additionally, I can view their full or complete customer history and any past interactions that they've had. This includes phone calls and emails and any digital messaging. I can see the transcripts of all of this interaction. So this with this, I feel fully informed and equipped to help this customer. I also have the ability to select this activity tab here, and this provides full details surrounding this specific activity. So if, let's say, this interaction was transferred, I would check here for notes, and I can even view a full audit trail of this interaction. In this case, we can see that it was routed and assigned to this queue and this agent. And of course, now that we have a full understanding of the customer and what's being asked, we can seek the correct answers to solve this customer's concerns. As I mentioned earlier, because the customer already interacted with the virtual assistant, the system already understands the intent of that question and, of course, of that escalation. So here it's going to automatically present the agent with guidance on how to respond to this customer's inquiry. With that, we have a few different options here where I can manually add these questions to the reply and converse with the customer that way, or I can turn on bot mode. Bot mode is an optional productivity enhancing feature that allows the agent to hand the conversation back over to a bot, and this allows them to automate a portion of that conversation. So I can go ahead and answer these questions, and you will see here that as I answer them as the customer on the phone, it's automatically going to bring up the next question. It's automatically going to send that over to the customer. As the agent, I can monitor this conversation and intervene by sending a message at any time. I can also turn off bot mode at any time as well. But here we're able to offer the chance to upgrade this customer's account and ask them that they've confirmed it. And all of that is done through that bot mode feature. As I mentioned, I can turn it off at any time. But ultimately what happens in this case is that we're going to land on a solution article, and this provides a summary of the procedure we just completed. I can easily add that information over to the reply and, of course, send that over to the customer. Another functionality that we offer is our language detection and translation bot. And this is done through our strong integration capabilities, where a solution can integrate with translation services and automatically translate messages. So for this example, as a customer, I'm going to enter in perfetto, which is Italian. The system understands that this is in English, but this is an English-speaking agent. So the word is translated and displayed directly within the reply pane here. So again, this is the customer message, and the system is automatically presenting that translation for them. In this situation, or in this scenario, this is configured one way where the verbiage is translated for the agent, but we can also have this set up to translate the conversation both ways. So if the customer was speaking a different language than the agent was, the agent messages could be translated back to that language as well. Another functionality we have is our virtual assistant for agents, and this continuously monitors customer conversations to provide proactive guidance. The compliance bot can check for compliance items, alerting agents and supervisors when it detects a non-compliant procedure or response. So as the customer, I'm going to ask, why do I have to sign the back of my check before depositing it? In this scenario, as you can see, the screen flashes, alerting the agent that there is a compliancy alert for this specific question. As the agent, I can review this note here, and I can go ahead and select the option and view what the compliance response is. I can go ahead and add that to the reply and send it over to the customer. When I do that, it's going to flash again, alerting me that I had answered in the correct way. But if for any reason I use a non-compliant response, maybe something like, because you have to, The system can also recognize this, and then, as you can see, it flashed orange, alerting me of the problem and suggest that I now go ahead and conference in or transfer over to a supervisor. Finally, I want to wrap up by explaining that that same virtual assistant can be used to front all of your messaging channels. We had mentioned this earlier, but I kind of want to show what that's going to look like. So I'm going to head over to our SMS channel. So what's great about our virtual assistant is that it adapts to the channel from which the customer is using. So this eliminates the need to create multiple channel-specific bots for the same purpose. And your customers, of course, have that same experience regardless of how they contact you. The only real difference is the format in which the virtual assistant responses are sent. And these, of course, are dependent on the channel. So I'm going to use that same scenario where I ask about an additional charge on my account. So as you can see, we're going to go through that same response bot that we did earlier, but again, the messages are adapting to the channel from which this virtual assistant is on. As a customer, I can answer, but instead of having options to choose from, like in the Apple Business Chat, I simply enter in my answer. So here I can enter in one or yes, or I can even say yeah, because our bot matches the answer to the closest answer. So in this case, it's going to match it to yes, and it's going to follow through that same process like we did earlier. All right, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for listening in on our demonstration. Back to you, Manju.
Thank you, Jessica. Arvind is going to come back on with the slides, but let me take this opportunity to call your attention to the questions panel. Pull it out and type your questions in. Could be on the demo that you just saw. It could be on all the content that both Ashu and Arvind presented, but this is your chance. And while you do that, let me take this opportunity to walk you through a couple of offers that we have for you this morning. The first of them is a 30-day pilot. We call it the innovation in 30 days. It is quick. It's incredibly exciting because we get to take one of your actual use cases. We'll work with you in the first 2 weeks to build that use case, design the solution. And when I say design, I mean design it so that it's absolutely beautiful. It's not just functional, but it also looks good. It feels great. And then in the second half of those 30 days, we actually put it into production so that you can get a sense of what our solution can do for you. Now, clearly, it's not extensive, but it is an actual use case that you can take and try out for 30 days. It's completely free. There's no commitment. So do reach out to us if you are at a point where you think that this is something that could work for you. Now, you may not be there yet, in which case we have another option for you. Maybe you're not sure of how to get started. Maybe you got started, but you're not sure about how it's going, or maybe you tried something and it didn't really work. Since we've been talking conversations all morning, we want to invite you to start one with us. Send us an email to easy@egain.com. We can set up a quick chat. We can show you portions of the demo that you may be interested in. We can take your particular scenario and tell you how you could use our conversation hub to make the experiences so much better for your customers, your agents, even for the bots that you may have built in your current environment. With that, let me start with some questions. We have an expert panel this morning, just to remind you, from our product management group. We have Varsha, who is the product manager for Conversation Hub. Arvind, of course, heads up the product management team for all digital and knowledge interactions. And in that context, now that I mentioned knowledge, let me remind you that we did have a webinar on the Knowledge Hub. That was our first in the series. A recording is available in case you were not able to make the actual live webinar. This morning session will also be recorded and shared with all of you. I see some questions coming in. How do we get a copy of a listing of all the functions of your virtual assistant? Arvind or Varsha, either one of you can take that.
Let me take that one, Manju. So we'll engage with you and we will provide you with a copy of the capabilities of the virtual assistant. We will also be publishing that as on our website. It'll be coming shortly, so you will be able to get that from the website as well. But immediately, we'll do that directly with you.
Hi, yes, in the same context, we're waiting to get a copy of an overview of the latest eGain upgrade. So the what's new, I think, is what they're talking about, which also I imagine we will be publishing pretty quickly. Arvind, you want to?
We are pretty close to publishing that on the website itself, so you will be able to pull that information directly from the website, and we can provide you with a copy as well for this. Okay?
Here's an interesting question for someone who has possibly read some of our content around Messaging Hub. She says, do you need the Messaging Hub to utilize the Conversation Hub? So maybe this is a good opportunity to sort of discuss messaging and the Conversation Hub.
Yeah, so the Messaging Hub, you do need, the Messaging Hub gives you the connections to the channels, but you do need the Conversation Hub, which is what allows you to bring all these elements together. Now, you could use the Conversation Hub and just start with your web chat. That would be an option, or you could go ahead and start that and work with all the different channels. But what the Conversation Hub allows you to do is bring the bot as well as the routing and the agent desktop into the picture and design a conversation with all of those elements in play.
I'll add to that a little bit. I think for anyone who has looked at our Messaging Hub capabilities, which was something we launched last year, and one way to think about it, and the right way here, is that the Conversation Hub supersedes the Messaging Hub and includes all the capabilities of the Messaging Hub and adds all the additional pieces we talked about around Arvind's comment with the ABCD richness that we're bringing, the agent connection, the bot connection, the channel connection, and the desktop connection. So these are not mutually exclusive. The Conversation Hub essentially supersedes the Messaging Hub.
Thank you, Arvind and Ashu. A question about the translation element. Is that available on all channels? Varsha?
Yes, the translation service that you saw in the demo, yes, that is available across all the out-of-the-box channels that are supported on the Conversation Hub.
Thank you. Are all the pieces that were in the demo available today? Is there anything for which we would need to do any extra work? What's out of the box? What needs extra work? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. All of the elements that you saw today, they're all available now, and it's all in the product. So it's all a matter of configuring elements. No extra work at all needed for the pieces that you saw today.
Thank you. Do you have any statistics about user experience or what metrics were impacted from the early companies? I think one of you mentioned that we've had some early companies using early users of the Conversation Hub. Do you have any statistics that you can share, or will you be publishing some?
We do have statistics that we will be publishing. And some of those things were things that Ashu kind of touched upon as well in his segment, including pieces that where customers tend to see an issue with messaging and the potential solutions for that. So we do have statistics in how the introduction of these elements and the Conversation Hub helped, which we will publish shortly.
Yeah, and anecdotally, just to add to that, what we are seeing is with many of our clients, we walk into a situation where they've already implemented one or two point solutions for messaging. They have a separate bot effort underway, and they're looking for a way to manage the complexity of all these things interoperating. We've been able to work with, for instance, a very large retailer, over $1 billion business growing like 40% a year. So they're one of these unusual online retailers. We have now created with our Conversation Hub a situation where they have deprecated 2 of their bots that they used to have earlier, and now using our virtual assistant to drive conversations across 2 of the messaging channels. And they have another 2 that we will be now moving and accommodating into our Conversation Hub. So this journey is something that we are seeing more and more. It's as much about the customer experience consistency as it is about the ease of implementing this at speed and scale.
Thanks, Ashu. A follow-up question on translation, Varsha, for you. Is the customer made aware that the message that they're seeing is a translation? Arvind?
Yeah, let me pick that one up, Manju. So that is really a configuration for enterprises. So some enterprises do want to make the customer aware that the message coming back is a translation and hence may contain errors. And some enterprises don't. We can do it. It's just a configuration.
It's just a configuration. A question about sort of the next step. Do you have any sessions lined up to cover solution architecture design and deployment with Cisco and all the other solutions that you mentioned? I guess I could take that one and say that that's a fantastic idea. We'll absolutely get on it and plan a session. That will be the next level of detail, as it were, for anyone who are interested in building out that solution. So thank you for that idea. Coming back to sort of translations and the whole international aspect of this, can I start in the US and spread to other countries? It seemed like there were many channels you talked about. So how does it work across all of them? Is it available in all of them? Varsha, you want to take that question? Yes. Essentially, let's break it down into 2 parts, right? Is how would it work internationally? Can I get this in all countries, whether I was in the US or in Europe? And then secondly, across channels, how would that work? Like, for example, SMS would be different from WhatsApp, maybe different from Messenger, I imagine. So maybe you could take that and just give us a little overview on how that whole thing would work.
Yes, so I can cover some of the richer channels like the Apple Business Chat, the Google Business Messages, the Twitter DM. So they already come with support across different geographies based on the pages they're mapped to or the handles they're mapped to. So we do support integrating in each of those geographies for those channels. Specifically for SMS and WhatsApp, so we do support international numbers across the different geographies. So we do support provisioning numbers for SMS or for WhatsApp in US, Canada, Europe, Asia Pacific, Australia with R21. So for SMS and for WhatsApp, the provisioning process is different for each country based on the compliancy requirements for those countries. But essentially, yes, we support, you can start with US and you can add different geographies for the richer channels like ABC or Facebook Messenger, etc. And likewise for WhatsApp and SMS. The process will be a little different based on the channel, but again, we have the business processes identified and we have the compliance requirements identified for each of those channels, and we can work with them in enabling those out of the box.
Thanks, Varsha.
So just one more point, Manju, I missed.
Yep.
So when there is a mention of the international SMS and WhatsApp, so we do support provisioning numbers in those geographies and doing SMS and WhatsApp on those numbers. And we also support, let's say you want to provision a number in the US, but you want to message on WhatsApp or on SMS to different countries, like customers who are in different countries. So we do support that as well with R21.
Thank you. Simple question: how do you price all of this?
I can pick that up, and then Ashu can jump in as well. The pricing is fairly straightforward. with messaging, it's by message coming into the hub. It's a very simple way of looking at it, and
So irrespective of channel, whether it's SMS or message, it's by message.
it is by message. I will call SMS out specifically, and the reason I'm calling SMS out is because SMS does have obviously the added carrier cost of sending that message out through various carriers. So the SMS prices are slightly higher, but for all the other channels, it is by message.
Okay, thank you. Last call for questions. Is Conversation Hub available now, or is there a launch date?
The Conversation Hub is available now. So we can start, if you are interested, we can start you up.
We can get you started as soon as tomorrow, I think, is what Arvind is saying. So do reach out to us, and we can either get going on the innovation in 30 days kind of approach, or we can begin that conversation that starts looking at which pieces make sense for you, what would you like to get started with, etc. You can always send an email to easy@egain.com, or if you have someone at eGain that you're already talking to, just reach out and say, I'd like to add the Conversation Hub to whatever it is that we're already talking about. Okay, I think we have about 10, 15 minutes left, so we can, oh, sorry, here we go. How do you make sure that actual customers are engaging via chat or SMS, etc., as in that they are human and that they're not just bots speaking to us?
Yeah. That is an interesting question, because that is something that we've actually heard from one of our customers. We do have the ability to look at previous conversations to determine what kind of conversations bots would engage in.
Yeah, so this is where the Conversation Hub flexibility comes in very handy. So for instance, you can imagine, and this is, as Arvind said, when we were talking to a couple of our clients who were looking to filter out bots pretending to be humans, you can inject in the Conversation Hub, you can add a bot which is testing for human behavior. So the usual questions that will filter out bots in website interactions, you can plug a bot like that into our Conversation Hub. And you can ask those questions, and if the bot struggles with it or the responder struggles with it, you can have business logic that says this person is most likely not human. So the flexibility that we bring with the Conversation Hub, the combination of channel, bot, agent, and desktop, that's where we can, and you can, do some very clever things with this architecture.
Thanks, Arvind. Ashu, a switch. Can I integrate with a UCaaS system that we have?
Yes, absolutely. We can pretty much integrate with any system and plug that into the Conversation Hub.
Right. And you talked about, bring your own X. So a couple of questions around, we have our own homegrown system for managing agent queries, or we have our own chatbot that we built with a third-party company. Can your Conversation Hub work with those sort of scenarios?
Absolutely. So both are very common situations that we encounter. The companies tend to have investments that they have made in conversational VA. That is a very common situation that we see. And as I mentioned earlier on in the presentation as well, you can bring that VA and plug that directly into the Conversation Hub. You can choose to use that virtual assistant exclusively, or you can use it in conjunction with our virtual assistant, meaning you can hand off things that require, more in-depth process guidance off to the eGain VA, etc. So you have various options in being able to bring those pieces into the Conversation Hub. And a word about the homegrown systems as well. We do see a lot of homegrown desktops primarily around CRM with our customers. And that's, again, an area where you can use the bring your own desktop capability to plug our Conversation Hub into those systems as well.
Yeah, to add to that, for example, we have a few clients who are right now engaging with us on adding IBM Watson-based bots into the Conversation Hub. And so the plugging of new kinds of technologies that you may already be invested in, that's very, very easily done in the Hub. Another couple of comments just to some of the questions that Manju brought up from our audience. In terms of UCaaS systems, we talked about Teams. You saw that as an example where we plugged. We didn't show you in the demo just because we didn't want to throw in a whole bunch of interfaces. But so Teams, Cisco WebEx, Slack, Zoom, all these open systems which have APIs we can plug into. These are not out-of-the-box integrations, but these are through published interfaces. And as we get more and more clients going, you'll see our library of out-of-the-box connectors just keep going up.
Thank you. I see a little pause in the question, so I do want to tell you that our community is up and live and active. So if you haven't checked it out, go to community.egain.com. Make sure you have an account. If not, you can reach out to us. There it is. Thank you, Arvind. There's a link on the slide as well. So if you don't have an account, send us a request. We'll make sure you can log in. You can always ask questions there, but in the context of the Conversation Hub, we also want to encourage you to use the easy@egain.com email address. Last call for questions. If we don't have any more, then I'm going to say we'll call it a day. We will see all of you on October 5th for the Analytics Hub webinar. And the fourth one in the series is going to be all about the Composable Experience Platform. It's going to be on the 20th of October. We'll make sure that we include information about those upcoming webinars when we send out the links to this recording. We'll also make sure, I got a couple of requests that said I missed the first one, where can I see it? So we'll make sure we include links to the Knowledge Hub webinar as well when we share this particular recording. And thanks everyone. Thank you, Ashu. Thank you, Arvind. Thanks to the panel, Varsha, Matthew, and James. It's been a fantastic morning. Have a great day, everyone. Or if you're off to bed now, good night.